You're listening to Around the Galaxy.
Welcome to a special bonus episode of Around the Galaxy, the Star Wars fan talk show. I am your host, Pete Fletzer, and along with my co-host, Nick Milkey, we bring you the conversations with the people behind the Star Wars fandom. Today, we are bringing you a special treat, a segment that we had to leave out of our last episode because we ran out of time, featuring none other than Clinton Yates of ESPN. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Clinton Yates is more than just a sports commentator. He's a columnist, he's a television personality, and a host at ESPN known for his incisive analysis and engaging presence across various platforms. From his impactful work on the Undefeated to his insightful contributions on ESPN Radio and TV programs, Clinton is a force to be reckoned with in the world of Star Wars and the world of sports journalism. But what you may not know is that he's also an enormous Star Wars fan, and we were lucky enough to have him join us for the show last week. And as I said, due to time constraints, we had to leave out our 10-question segment with him. But fear not, because today we're making it right by bringing you that exclusive conversation. And in this segment, we will be gathering everything from his favorite Star Wars moment to his favorite sound effect to his favorite droid. It was a ton of fun. But before we dive into the 10 questions, a quick reminder to connect with us on our website, theSSWnetwork.com, and on social media platforms, including TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and, of course, Twitter or X or whatever you call it. You can find us there at the SSW Network. Plus, if you want to support the show and gain access to exclusive content, consider joining our Patreon program at patreon.com/the SSW Network. And don't forget, our live Thursday night show is happening tonight, if you're listening on the day of the drop, called ATGLive. Join us as we cover all the latest Star Wars news of the week, feature special guests like tonight's guest, John the Outlaw Rocha, and we'll read your comments live. So tune into our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@the SSW You won't want to miss it. And now, without further ado, let's jump into our 10-question segment with Clinton Yates after these messages.
We're going to transition into one other segment before we get you out of here. We've been thankful for your time tonight.
No problem.
We do what we call the 10-question segment. This is kind of a little bit inside the actor's studio. We're going to throw some questions at you. I didn't give you these ahead of time. We like it to be a little off the cuff, a little off the top of the head.
All right.
And the first one is, and I think we know the answer because you did talk about it, but we're going to throw it at you anyhow. What is your favorite Star Wars movie, TV show, or book?
It's Rogue One and it's Bad Batch. And I mentioned that Rogue One sort of changed me in the context of realizing not just in the Star Wars galaxy, but it helped me understand something about how I did my own job, which was I don't write about wins and losses, bro. Like occasionally I do. And that's something that is something I used to do, something that I've done before, but it doesn't always make the best movie, so to speak. And having been, privileged enough to be able to write stories and tell stories in that manner, I learned a lot about what I call all the time the Z-axis, which is, again, not everything is just X and Y, bro. You know what I mean? There is the part that goes in that is a part of the third dimension of life that we all exist in, not to get too whatever, but you see my point here. Like the Z-axis element, when Star Wars went that way in the movie visual form, changed me. Obviously, it had existed in other forms of legend. Obviously, it had existed in other forms of lore. But for whatever reason, Rogue One was just a major game changer to me. And like I said, I was jumping up screaming like a jerk when I was a professional. Bad Batch for me, and I've specifically waited for personal reasons to start Bad Batch. But when that dropped, there was a part of it that I was like, oh, there's new art, and like Clone Wars, great. It looked great. It was fun, but there was something about the treatment of Bad Batch that was just a touch different, just a touch more mature. The pacing was just a touch different, where I was like, this is me, And again, I know that I talk, if your listeners are big into hardcore character talk, hardcore storyline breakdowns, I apologize, but I'm an artistic guy and a storytelling guy. And again, Bad Batch came out of somewhere. I was like, oh, all right, this is nice. This is the restaurant I would go to.
Yeah,
in the galaxy, routinely, were I forced to pick one, and that's kind of where I am with that. The live action shows, of course, the Mandalorian experience was tremendous. The first guest that we had, on Never Tell Me the Odds, being Carl Weathers and Grief Karga was like something that came about through form and function that ended up being very sort of fortuitous, pardon the, alliteration in that situation. But yes, the Mandalorian experience was one of the more incredible things to be a part of as a Star Wars fan, quite frankly, because I can't remember the last time we had sort of onboarded bandwagon people that were like, oh, Baby Yoda, people who still don't know Grogu's name. And like, I get it. You know what I mean? But it created a bit of a movement. And in a world in which nobody's going to movie theaters like that to have those collective experiences week in and week out, that was as close as we were going to get. I don't want to say storytelling aside, because that's kind of not what I'm getting at, but the way that everybody got to experience it, I think was really important for the survival of a certain generation. I was lucky enough, and this is the last part I'll say about this, I was lucky enough to get to go see the Ahsoka premiere at Lucasfilm Limited in San Francisco. And it was a fan event, and all of the, San Fran 501st was there. I mean, it was a whole, it was a whole thing, like people that do 10 times more than I will ever do in terms of what they do costuming wise and the commitments they have to their groups, the guilds and so forth, that I respect the hell out of, because they represent a certain part of the culture that I think is vital to the average fan understanding how seriously people take it. But I had a blast. And those experiences from the TV shows, I don't know that I could have predicted, like, for example, when I was jumping out of my seat during Rogue One, I don't know that I would have seen it getting all the way there, whether or not, everybody loved it or not. And so, again, we all work in media. The survival of certain brands and certain traditions and certain cultures and certain rituals is the word I was trying to get to, is not something we have a lot of anymore. And if Star Wars as a galaxy is the one that can uphold some of those things, I'll take it. And I'm glad I've been here.
That's great. I love what you're saying. I say it all the time. That the joke, the way I put it in a humorous way is, you can't throw a cat in a Walmart without hitting a Grogu shirt, right? And it's people who don't even know what it is. They don't even know why they're wearing a Baby Yoda shirt, but they love it. And the Mandalorian, I think, is, right, there you go. Mandalorian was
piling up with stuff. I got porgs over here. I was supposed to change my shirt. I didn't even do it. Well, hold on. I gotta show you this. So this is the Star Wars Night Tampa Bay Lightning shirt.
Nice.
Yes.
So we
check that out.
We taped our podcast on the concourse of that, and so I've got stuff piling up all over.
Well, I'll have to send you the picture. We have our AA baseball affiliate, the Montgomery Biscuits Summer. They have released their Star Wars Night jerseys, and it's basically
when is the Star Wars Night? When is the Star Wars Night?
It's in June. It's in June.
Tell your people to talk to my people.
I think it's close to the Rickwood game. I think it might be that same week.
No,
but the jersey is basically the Phantom Menace poster. Like, it's the black and it's got Amidala in the middle and all. It's freaking
I need
sweet.
to see this right now.
I'll send you a picture.
Share it in the chat.
All right. Pete, ask your question.
I'll ask the question. You look up the picture.
We were doing a show here.
He'll bring it up. My question for the next question is, and you started leading into it, so it's like you were reading ahead. What's your favorite Star Wars collectible? Whether it's something that only you got as part of something you did, or something you can buy at, Target.
So
what's your favorite thing?
stories on that. My lightsaber from when we were there just now is still coming. So
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to reference that. But I think I have the name of this book right. Hold on. Yes. It's in a box over there, but I just want to make sure I get it right. The Blueprints of Star Wars. If you've never seen that hardcover, I don't know, the book might be 400 pages. You know what I mean? It's like something if you hit a child in the head with it, you would hurt them severely. No, I mean that as to say, like, it's one of those things you could not keep around the house with children because they might hurt each other kind of thing. It's a big, heavy book. It is a white, and it is literally the blueprints of ships, the sets, the costumes, never mind just the characters to scale, the things they actually built. It explains how all the different designers worked on all these things, and it is thorough.
Yeah.
Great gift for somebody that is of the design mind or even not, who kind of enjoys certain parts of Star Wars that, again, aren't just Palpatines and Skywalkers. Like, it's a really cool book. It's like a textbook on some level, but it's not boring. Pete, I'm understanding from your tone that you know this book.
I do. And it's funny because this is near 200 episodes and only one other person has referenced that. And that's former ABC reporter Clayton Sandell. And he's the guy who he says he will watch The Empire Strikes Back and go to that page and find the set blueprint.
Spec to spec. Right.
Yes. So I am familiar with that book and it is amazing. And not enough people, I think, know about that book. That's really wild. That's a great call.
That's what I'm here for.
You're bringing it. Did you find the jersey, Nick?
It's okay. I dropped my pencil once again so we can have a double pump.
Okay.
That's right. Here we go. Let's get this going.
Let's see this. You guys just shared it in the private chat, and I would have looked at it on my own. You didn't have to bring it into the broadcast. That's what I was hoping for.
We're coming in hot. Pete,
all right.
Let's see what we got here. All right here in the middle. If I can spell this, I can't make it.
Big Pete. There he is.
It is April 27th. I was wrong about June. April 27th.
I'm only seeing Galaxy moving.
Yeah. What's there we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Look at this. All right.
April 27th.
Okay, I see it now. Oh, yeah. That's going to be tough in a night game. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, pretty sweet.
Okay.
I was impressed.
All right. No, that's a good job. Look at the biscuit.
That is awesome.
They're recognizing the anniversary and going all out. Somebody in that office knows what they're doing.
Again, that's the next person you should have on this show.
Without a doubt.
Not even a joke.
Yeah. I'm calling down there tomorrow to figure it out.
And then make sure you get us some jerseys.
That's right. Well, they auction them at the end of the season, and I've almost bought years past. This year, I think we may have to make that happen. All right, so we're going to keep going in our 10 questions. And the next one is describe Star Wars in 3 words or less.
Urban robot fantasy is probably what I think of. And the reason why I use such basic words is because, like I said, I'm 42. And when I was in high school from 95 to 99. And that's important because that is when the rise of other franchises and bigger products started to overtake a decent amount of the zeitgeist. Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Big effing deal to a lot of people. The Harry Potters of the world. Big effing deal to a lot of people. So the part that I realized I liked most about Star Wars, I was like, yo, I can't do trees and wizards. And it's just not for me. It's not for me. Robots and lasers are my primary affiliation in terms of the stylization of whatever. I'm making up a word, but like, of course, yes, there are Ewoks. Yes, Yoda is pulling things out of, swamps, but it is not primarily based around wizards and trees and dragons. You know what I mean? Like that there was a distinct point in my life where I was like, this is not that cool to me. You know what I mean? Whereas what I just described definitely is. That's why I use those 3 words. So basically,
I like it.
That's awesome. Great. Well, I'm going to change our order up a little bit. Just a little tip to Nick. I'm going to go with the question of who is your favorite Star Wars droid, since we went with urban robot fantasy? Let's get to the droid question.
So when I went to Lucasfilm in San Francisco at the Presidio, I did not know what I was going to see, because a lot of people have been to the gates to take pictures with the Yoda at the fountain, but they do not let you in unless you are invited. So as a quick aside and a shout out to my homies, I'm in 2 Star Wars group chats. One is like a social one that is friends of mine that gathered, because I simply got tired of texting all of my different takes to 3 different people. I was like, guys, we need to start a group chat. And now we're all good friends and we talk about life and yada, yada. And the other one is obviously for the program. Never told me the odds. Right. And so when I texted a picture of yo, look at this, everyone was like, you jerk. And when I walked in and they had the life-size K2SO, I was like, wow, like it's really here. And that, again, I don't mean to harp on Rogue One as sort of the progenitor of anything, because it wasn't, but it was the fulcrum. Congratulations, you were being rescued. Like, that was one of those things that kind of flipped the script on you. And so you're like, I'm not sure I understand what's going on here, you know? And the existence of what that droid means in terms of reprogrammed Imperial, like, think about that, you know, and how important that is in the larger context of everything that's happening. And the reason why, frankly, the Rogue One movie for me in the theater was so emotional started when Kay dies. And I was just like, yo, I was highly invested, okay, in the attempts that this droid was making to understand Jyn Erso. Number 2, play the role. Number 3, do the job. And goodbye. Like, yo, I still get a little emotional every time I see that. So if you start there as your jumping off point, where I'm at this point, I'm a mess. And then everything else happens, you can understand my point. But it's my favorite droid by a lot, because it feels like the most human in the context of, if you let a droid really develop in ways that was not programmed by, I don't know, Anakin, a midichlorians off the chart person, or an Imperial whatever, because he was reprogrammed. Like, you kind of got like a person, and that's why I like it to itself.
Awesome.
I love that. What is your favorite Star Wars sound effect?
Oh, this one is easy. I think it's the X-Wing, and this one is one that I learned at this. No, not the X-Wing. It's the TIE Fighter, or is it the Imperial Fighter? I think this is the basic TIE Fighter sound. If I'm getting this right, I mean, I know the sound, but it is. And I learned this at the Smithsonian when I was 16, because they played it, and you could listen to both tracks. You could listen to them both to the middle. It is a car screech and an elephant horn. And when you put them together, it's like, oh, okay. Like, sure. These are just dudes doing stuff in random sound studios in England or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's cool. And I remember how, listen, you work in media and like, audio production and all that. Everybody's got an element of that in what we do. We all understand the basics of how you construct sound. That's the reason why we're talking to each other on these microphones. And I remember how humanizing, to use that word again, that was. I was like, these jokers put together 2 random sounds that made something that doesn't sound like anything else. And that's absolutely what it sounds like once you know what it is. And it's great. So that would be it.
Yep.
And it's so iconic. I love, you see the picture all the time, like on social media, and it's the pictures of the TIE fighters in the trench run. And it says something like, if a picture has a sound, or if you can hear this picture, you're one, like, it's that iconic. Like, you cannot not hear that when it's mentioned or you see a picture.
But you got to understand, I grew up in the city. My dad happened to work in South Africa as a diplomat. I've heard both of these natural sounds, not just in zoos. You know what I'm saying? Not just in the movies. I was like, that is wild. It's excellent.
That's great. Yeah, my very first interview for Star Wars Galaxy magazine for Lucasfilm in '96, I guess it was Ben Burt, the sound guy. Yeah, and that was just, Star Wars is full of things that sound effects that, and I say it almost every single time we ask this question, but it's because the people bring up these great points. These are sounds that if Star Wars didn't exist, you'd be like, that is a strange sound, makes no sense. But now it is so clearly iconic. And it could be nothing else. It could be nothing else. Which
Pete,
is
to the point that let me to build upon your point, because I kind of forgotten about this until you reminded me. So when we were at the park at Galaxy's Edge, before people got there, like normally, and I had never been, so I wasn't necessarily as familiar. And that was I'll just say this separately. That was a really special experience for me to be able to go to the first time with the homies, with the show, with all the cast members that made it such an experience, and then have people come in. But we were just standing. I'll never forget, by the Blue Milk spot. And you were like, and I was like, yo, the sound design of this is on another level. Yeah. You might as well think we are under attack every such and such minutes, and it is not repeatable. I'm like, I'm getting a little nervous just because these sounds to me mean something that has never applied to me just standing on my 2 feet. But I know exactly what they are. If you were just standing somewhere and you thought a TIE fighter was coming in, you'd probably duck. You know what I'm saying? Like, just on general reaction, even though you've never been in that situation, that happened to me multiple times while I was there. And I say that as a professional accolade to the people that do exactly what you were just talking about, Pete. Sound direction, sound design, audio engineering, and all of this. Acoustical science, as a lot of people like to call it, is such a part of life that I think is just underrated in general. And the Star Wars Galaxy does it better than any franchise I can think of. Absolutely.
Yeah. My first time at Galaxy's Edge, and actually I've been there 2 or 3 times. I was in the one in California, but then one in Florida. And you look up expecting to see something, and you're like, oh,
it's a trap. And you're like, no, it's not. I just have to go to the bathroom. It's all that's going on here.
That's funny. Our next question on the list is, which Star Wars character would you most like to be, and why?
Most like to be?
Yeah.
I'm going to take this time to say something about a person that I think I really like, and I think this is going to make sense from a redemption standpoint. Ahmed Best's redemption arc is arguably the most fulfilling part of my life that has existed as a Star Wars fan, and I'm not even joking. Like Hayden getting paid off as the unappreciated Anakin that turned into Vader, that when all of those people that were young enough to grow up and tell all the losers in their basements, and I say that with love, to F off because you're just looking at this guy at the mall, so to speak. Like, that was one thing. But for Ahmed to come back from the Jar Jar situation to now in The Mandalorian, that, like, man, that was a good way to come. And I understand that in my own life in many ways. Not that I was ever written off necessarily, but kind of, you want to look at my own life story, I get that. And maybe it's not the character I would most want to be. And pardon me for going super political on that and just answering the question I wanted, but choosing to do that. I think as a human and as a person, that's the character I sort of relate to most as to who the person that played it is. And that's really special. Sidebar, Carl Weathers mentioned him as his favorite moment of working on Star Wars. He directed that episode.
Right.
And that connectivity between those two and that lineage was just really something special, particularly as somebody that covers black folks in the Star Wars universe.
Well, we're gonna spice it up just for a minute as we get to the last few questions in this list. If you have one, what is your Star Wars unpopular opinion?
Unpopular opinion. Let me think about that. Well, okay. I mean, I mentioned this before, but the Chewie take was a very unpopular opinion for a long time, and I will expand upon that. First of all, again, think of living in a world with just 4, 5, 6 for a long time.
Right.
Chewie, unidentifiable dialogue without another human there. Number 2, terrible comic timing, constantly botching all of the stuff. And like number 3, okay, decent pilot, I guess, but didn't necessarily know anything. And 4, morale liability. Arms might get ripped off. I was like, yo, Chewie, why are we showing so much deference to this Wookiee? Like, bruh, you know what I mean? Like, this is the guy in your crew that's a total wild card. You know what I'm saying? And like, if anything goes wrong, you got to have that one whisperer that's going to make sure this person doesn't freak out. And so, you know, that was always my take for a long time. This is when I was a younger man that liked to argue about things like that. But my point is that sometimes I was like, yo, Chewie's in way too many scenes. Like way too many scenes. Lot of Wookiee dialogue. But, you know, that's just how I feel about that. But it you know, it's obviously all paid off. But the reason why I laugh about that now is because we did the Star Wars holiday episodes in which one of the obvious ones that we reviewed the 2, the Lego and the previous. You know, the original Star Wars holiday episode is 10 clock minutes of Wookiee dialogue. And it's just like, yo, are we serious with this? Wow, that's intense. And so I remember when we talked about that, I was like, man, Chewie was really a movement on a level that, like, if I was probably 10 years older, I would think completely differently of that character. But when it came to me, I was like, what is this Wookiee doing here? You know what I mean? But icon. And so when I got to meet him and I gave him the fist bump and he just did the whole hand over it. And I was like, all right, Chewie, you're my guy now. So that was a good experience. And yeah, he's nowhere close to as annoying to me as he was when I was 15 years younger.
And your holiday special episode of Never Tell Me the Odds is one of my favorite episodes you guys did. I thought that was great. I love that.
You.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of pilots, if you could own any spaceship or vehicle in the Star Wars universe, and we're going to take the Falcon off because I feel like that's the default. Yeah.
Luckily, your boy comes prepared because once again, we got to put this guy together soon, boys.
Oh, yeah.
The old N1. So part of the reason why the N1, I think, is the coolest ship, and I'm completely stealing this from Ryan McGee, but they put a Hemi in that bad boy. All right. That tank can move on a different level. And one of the things we do on our show is Galactic Garage. And once again, Ryan, thank you for all of this knowledge because I'm talking as if I know this. Oh, wait, hold on. Wait, this is important. I have the mini guy right here. So, yeah. Quick shout out to Aaron Thornton, who was our team lead on our trip as a group, and she gave us all little guys piece. So it's the mini N1.
I love it.
So it's good. So the N1 is my favorite. It's just the most like it's the best like single carrier. I mean, I'm acting like I know these terms better than I do. It's the best single carrier vehicle that there is. That's not, some sort of a pod racer. Like that thing is legit, bro. You know what I'm saying? Just you, little guy in the back. You can win a lot of battles in that bad boy, and you don't need to gas up all the time. It's got the ion joint.
And I love the scene when he takes it out for that first run, and he just flexes on it. And they're sitting there, they're talking, and he just hits the button, and it's over.
Right,
we're gone.
Go time.
Yeah, we're gone.
Excellent.
We've got 2 more quick questions for you. The next one is, what is your favorite Star Wars moment? And I'm going to expand this just a little bit. It could be something, a moment in a movie or a show, or it could be a personal experience moment that you've had. Obviously, you've talked about this trip to Galaxy's Edge with your guys. What is your favorite Star Wars moment?
This is a part where things get emotional for me a little bit. But, when I was a volunteer at the Smithsonian, like I said, you would be there sometimes long after people left. And that meant you got to look at the costumes by yourself. And I remember that I would see the Vader costume in the display that it was in. And I always would look at it, and it was weird because, like, at that point of my life, things were you're a teenager, your parents are divorced, you're doing whatever you can do to get through high school. And I always look at that costume as an indication of the character, and that there is good in you would always resonate to me for whatever reason. And it was a thing that I would do every time I worked a late shift there, or like a closing shift there. And that was really meaningful to me in terms of what I believed about myself. Like Darth Vader was cool. Darth Vader killed a lot of people. Darth Vader had the cool voice, but like it always stuck with me that like, yo, there's good inside of you. And like, that's at some point you can't forget that. And for whatever reason, seeing the actual costume made that much more meaningful. And that's a personal one. Storyline wise, again, I've referred to this 2 or 3 times, but I'm not going to stop. The last scene of Rogue One where they walk directly into episode 4. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I remember the lead I wrote on the column I wrote about that was, how do you tell a story that everybody already knows by not letting them know when it's going to end? And that was like, it blew me away. And the particular part, white walls, as I mentioned before, but when homeboy is like sticking it through the door and he's like, take it. Takes it, stumbles, barely gets over the goal line, almost fumbles out of the end zone for the touchback, but it was game over for the Galaxy. Luckily keeps his feet and they bang it out, and Vader's sitting there looking, and you're just like, gotta go. That was an emotional rush that I haven't had in a movie theater since, flatly. And that was the buildup. So for me, again, I know I'm sorry. I talk about Rogue One a lot. It's my favorite. I watch it when I'm bored and I want to do something. That's what I do. And that one was really. I'll be old, and you'll be burning me alongside the other Jedi, in the woods. But I also remember that.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Well, our last official question of the 10 question segment is, what is your go-to Star Wars quote? Maybe not necessarily your favorite, but the one that you drop all the time.
So this is ridiculous for me to admit in front of people. Like,
we're not people. We're just Star Wars.
For whatever reason, and I don't say this like to anybody. There's no reason for me to ever say this in real life. But when I'm in my house by myself, this line comes to mind, and it applies to anything that has displeased me at the moment, which is, "You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away." Like, for whatever reason, that dumb line goes through my head dozens of times a month, like a lot, and it's like, oh, toast is burned, take her away. You know what I mean? And it's
take her away.
That you're a part of
that's
the
fabulous.
Like it's just, I don't know why, but it's such a, because I remember thinking like, why do they have English voice? Like what? They're colonizers on top of being imperialists. This is crazy, So, that I remember that as being like one of the more stern things I'd ever heard. I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy's no joke,
That's awesome. That is great. All right, Nick, I'm gonna throw the bonus question in there, and it's not Star Wars related. So okay, I'm a Phillies guy.
Sure.
Nick's a Braves guy. We went head to head.
Oh God, we're doing NL East talk.
No, I just gotta ask, of the two of us, who's gonna be happier at the end of the season?
Oh man, I mean the Bravos lost a lot. And by that I mean they lost Ron and EY. Let's not sleep on what losing your 2 base coaches is like. I think that's more important than anybody can pay attention to. But also the Phils, are they on the last leg of whatever this beer league softball team run is? I don't know the last leg. And I'm not being funny, but I mean like that. Those kind of roster construction wise, that only works for a certain amount of time. I mean you're at the point now where Bryce has missed out on a couple different World Series within what I would call his prime. Nick Castellanos isn't going to be a freaking magician in right field forever.
Right.
And I just sort of feel like if it doesn't happen this, and Lord knows what's going on with Kyle. So if it didn't happen against the Stroke.
Right.
They had a real shot. We remember because we were there. Then they got no hit in their own park. I was like, oh, this is over. And so that was too bad. But that was the shot that they had that they did not capitalize on. I feel like not only has, I don't want to say the rest of the division, but that roster has developed in a certain way. And then the rest of the bigs has developed in a certain way too, where the Phillies to me don't necessarily match up against the top teams the way they once did. Mm-hmm. But, they could go on one of these fire wagon runs again, where Schwarber starts hitting yams every single time he gets to the plate to start the game. And if you get into the playoffs and you can do that, it might work.
Yeah, there's that weird Philly thing, man. Hockey is my number one sport, and I'm a Flyers fan. And the Flyers this year are playing; they're winning, and they shouldn't be, and they're just fun to watch. There's something about Philly sports where some little spark happens, and you never know how far it's going to go. You just don't. Well, it's going to go to the championship and then lose. Is usually what happens.
This is what we were waiting for. The self-effacing, defeatist attitude. You and Cyril. You and Cyril and Andor can take that one back to your mom. Okay? Who's watching the Star Wars News Network, by the way.
Exactly.
Who has it? That's a whole other separate thing.
Yeah.
Of course, the old lady who's got everything that who's flunked out everything needs, she's got the news network. Nobody else does.
Right. She's watching Space Sean Hannity and just sitting there being pissed off about the world.
My mom, Space QVC.
Right. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Around the Galaxy. Thanks to Clinton Yates, and thank you for listening. If you had fun, please like, subscribe, share, rate, and review it. If you'd like to join our Patreon program, please head on over to theSSWnetwork.com and click Join SSWN. You'll also find information about our merch there. Follow us on all your social media channels at the SSW Network, and don't forget to catch our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@theSSWNetwork. This has been copyright 2024 Pete and the Seed Studios, and our music is by the band Apollo's Ghost.